In the last video, we talked about functional and dysfunctional ways of handling conflict. To tell you the truth, most of us display those ways of handling conflict at one time or another. Well, today, in Module 4, Video 2, we're going to talk more about conflict styles. Conflict styles are a little bit more permanent. It's not that we don't all do the different styles at some points, but we have a tendency to gravitate towards certain styles of handling conflict. Now, in a later video, we're going to talk about a better way to handle conflict than the 4 styles we'll talk about today. These are usually not good ways to handle conflict, but I'm sure you will know people who deal with conflict in these ways. The first style of handling conflict is called a non-assertive style, or really an avoidant style. Some people are so intimidated by conflict, or maybe they just are afraid of the pain the conflict's going to cause, that they just literally don't bring it up. Now, it's sometimes okay to do this because you have to pick your battles, right? There's no point in arguing about something that's really stupid. Sometimes, honestly, it's better to let things go. But if something's really bothering you, it's not a good idea to completely avoid the conflict. You're not going to be very happy, and I'll be honest with you, I think in most cases, people hold things inside for way too long, and then eventually it comes out somehow. Everything boils over and it comes out, and then the person you're mad at feels completely blindsided. So being avoidant in a conflict is usually not good. The second style of handling conflict is something called an indirect style. This is kind of like where you're angry about something, and it's not that you're completely avoiding it, but you're just dropping hints that you're angry. The problem with it, of course, is that most people don't pick up on your hints. We can't read your mind, especially somebody like me, because my head is like this thick, okay? And I don't really pick up on hints very well. You might use this if you are trying to be subtle, but honestly, if you are the kind of person who's very indirect, don't expect people to understand that you're angry. I will give you an example of this. My mother-in-law is quite an indirect person. She's a very subtle person, and honestly, in some ways it's a very good quality because she's a very gentle person, and I admire that. But when she's angry about things or when she disagrees, you hardly ever know it. And an interesting thing that happened was, it took us years and years and years to pick up on this, is that when she disagrees with you, she'll say, well, I don't know. And we didn't understand for years that that meant she was saying, no, I don't agree with that. And so my husband and I would, we would blather through telling her this stuff, and she would look at us and say, well, I don't know. And my husband would look at her and he would go, what don't you know? I just told you. Okay? And so finally we began to realize that she felt really bullied by us because we would respond that way, but we weren't picking up what she was saying either. So anyway, I don't think either of us were being particularly effective. In fact, if you did that to somebody and you don't pick up their indirect hints, they probably would look at you as pretty pushy. So, and feel disrespected, but, it's a double-edged sword, really. The next style of handling conflict is passive-aggressive. This is my least favorite style. Passive-aggressive people are aggressive, but they're not directly aggressive. These are related to the punishers that we talked about in the last video. They disguise their anger and sometimes try to play it off as being almost like, oh, I'm really trying to help you, but they're not really, okay? Let's say, for example, you've got a friend and you say, hey, could you babysit the kids for me for a couple of hours? The person might go, yeah, I guess. So as soon as you're gone, she calls somebody else and says, oh, what does she think? I have nothing else to do? So she doesn't really, instead of just saying, no, I'm sorry, I don't have the time right now, sorry about that, which would have been a lot more honest, she instead punishes you by talking about you behind your back. And this is a very common thing that passive-aggressive people do. They will not express how they feel to your face, but they will talk about you behind your back to everybody else and, in fact, completely trash you. I'm in a situation right now with someone that I work with. I actually don't really even know her that well, but she's giving me a kind of a hassle about something she perceives that I don't do well, or I'm not holding up to her standards. And I found out that she's actually talking about me quite a bit at work. It's not somebody in my department, but she's talking about me at work to other people in a very negative way. Nothing that she has sent me has been directly aggressive, but she has sent me a couple of emails that seem like a veiled attempt to offer me help. But the real message is that she's saying, okay, look, Connie, you are not doing a good job. So it's very passive aggressive. I find it to be very annoying. C'est la vie. It is what it is. Okay, the last kind of style of handling conflict is to be directly aggressive. This is everything from physical violence to name calling, yelling, pounding your fist, slamming doors, storming out. And by that, I don't mean if you say, look, I need a little bit of time to think about this. I'm really angry. I'll be back in an hour. That's not storming out. But I mean just turning around and walking away. I've literally had students storm out of my office, and I always think, well, what do they think they're going to accomplish by doing that, right? So very directly letting the person know that you're very angry at them. Acting in any kind of threatening manner is direct aggression. Now, let me just tell you something about this. No one wants to be with somebody like this, and particularly at work, if you're like this, it will always make you look bad. Even if you're in the right, it's always going to make you look bad if you act like this. So let's talk about that. What's it like to be in a relationship with these people? Let's go back to being indirect. Let's go back to non-assertive. You're going to be pretty frustrated when you're in a relationship with somebody like this, because you'll feel like, number one, the person doesn't trust you enough to say how they really feel, and that's going to be very damaging. Now, you would ask yourself, why does that person not trust me? Is it because they know you're going to be aggressive and have a big hissy fit if you hear something negative about yourself? Can you take criticism like an adult? If they don't trust you, then they're likely to just completely avoid conflict. So you have to look at both sides. With a non-assertive person, you're never going to pick up what this person is putting down. I mean, you're just not ever going to know why they're saying what they're saying. They're going to be frustrated. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to end up feeling like it's your fault when it's possibly not your fault. And conflicts are going to drag out for a really long time because you can't get to the bottom of things. So being with somebody like this can be very difficult. Being with a passive-aggressive person is really, really bad. I mean, honestly, who wants to be with somebody who's going to go trash them behind their back? The worst thing you could do when you're having and this is very good advice, by the way, I hope. The worst thing you can do if you're in a relationship with somebody when you're having an argument is to talk to somebody else about that. Think about it. If my husband and I were having an argument and he went up to his sister's house or his mother or something like that and told them all about it, I would be really, really upset about that. I would never trust him again. So certain things have to stay private in order to build trust and respect in your relationship, right? So you don't want to do those kinds of things. Another thing you don't want to do with any of this stuff is put things in writing. So if you're having an argument, one of the rules you should have is, okay, we're going to deal with this face to face. You're not going to text things that could easily be misinterpreted. You're definitely not going to put it in email. I have a real horror story of a friend who was angry at another professor who her office was literally right upstairs. And she could easily have just gone and talked face to face instead. She put it in a long email, It was very harassing, and it became a part of her permanent record at the university because she could not resist the temptation of saying things in the email that she would never say to this person's face. So never ever do that. But it's not good to be in a relationship with somebody who's passive aggressive. Definitely horrible to be in a relationship with somebody who's directly aggressive, because directly aggressive is just going to scare you. It's going to intimidate you. It's going to make you feel scared to death to bring up anything because you don't trust the person to act like a grown-up. And obviously, all of these things are bad at work. In the next video, I'm going to give you an alternative to handling your conflict in these negative ways. This is my husband, Lynn. We've been married for 25 years, as you know, and in some of my other videos, I talked about the difference between how his family handles conflict and how my family handles conflict. And today I'm going to ask him a little bit about how that family culture issue has had an impact on how he deals with conflict in general. So, dear, could you tell us how comfortable are you with conflict in general?
Not at all, but much better than I used to be.
Okay. Tell me why you're not comfortable with conflict.
I can't think when, if I get irritated, I can't think, and the English language leaves me. I don't have the ability to produce words especially when I'm irritated.
And you told me one time something like it's like the words are on the other side of a wall.
Yeah, I said it's like, when you're looking out the back of your head, you don't see black. There's just nothing there. And that's what it's like. There's just nothing there.
And that makes the conflict harder for you.
Well, I think it's frustrating for me, and it's because it makes me look like a loser, and it's frustrating for the people that are dealing with me. Maybe not. They just think they win and walk away, or if they don't get what they want, then they're irritated.
Okay, right. Your family in general seems to have a little bit of difficulty dealing with conflict, or at least your style and your family's a little bit different from mine. Could you comment about that?
Well, the difference is between your family and my family. Your family thrives on it, and we avoid it. I mean, it's yelling at person is rude, and you don't want to do anything to upset anybody. That's the way we were raised. So you don't do it, or you handle it in probably more unhealthy ways than just sitting down and talking about it.
Like what?
I don't know. I can't remember the words you taught me, but it probably would wind up screaming and yelling at some point because the lid is just going to blow, rather than dealing with it right away, which is what you should do.
Can you describe what it was like in the beginning of our marriage when you were angry at me or you weren't happy with something I was doing, how you handled it at that time?
I didn't say anything.
And how'd that work out for you?
Not well. Not well. You always lose when you don't say anything.
Okay. And how did I handle it?
I think you handled my silence, and you misinterpreted what I was doing, and you kept rephrasing the same question or list of questions or phrases or whatever you wanted to know, just over and over and over again. And repetition is one of the things that really cranks me.
Yeah.
So
how'd that work out for me?
It didn't work. It didn't work. It did not work.
And through the years, would you agree that we're both a little bit different in the way we handle conflict?
Yeah, I'm better at it than I was, and you have gotten more patient in waiting for some sort of appropriate response.
And how many years do you think it really took us to get to that point?
23.
Yeah, we've been married 25. So pretty much, he's right. Okay.
Marriage is no picnic, my friends.
Well, with me it has been though, right?
Right? Yeah, but I'm just saying, it's for some people it can
Yeah.
be a real pain sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
For some people it can be a lot of work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so ours has been joy and happiness.
Yeah. Definitely kittens and strawberries.